For a long time, humans kept quiet. After they met other species in space, they were told they were late to the party. The galaxy already had rules, powers, and orders. Humans were new, small, and alone. They had no big fleets, no ancient empires, no seat at the high tables where decisions were made. So they listened. They learned. They tried to fit in. The main ones in charge were the Krell hegemony and the Veln conquered. The Krell were tall, armored, and proud. They believed strength was everything. The Veln were calm, smooth-talking, and loved rules more than people. Both saw Earth as a young, messy world full of loud, emotional beings who didn't understand how the galaxy really worked. To them, humans were useful but not important. Earth had resources, metals from asteroids, water from icy moons, and people, lots of them, who would work hard for little pay. Human colonies popped up on Mars, the Moon, and distant places like New Oregon and Cerberus 9. Men and women left Earth hoping for a better life. Instead, they found long shifts, thin air, and alien bosses who barely looked at them. Daniel Shaw was Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council. He was in his 50s with tired eyes and a calm voice. At every meeting, he spoke politely. He asked for fair treatment. He reminded others of the treaties they had all signed. But his words vanished like smoke. The Krell called him the Whispering Man. The Veln nodded, wrote notes, and changed nothing. Back home, people watched the news. They saw their brothers and sisters on mining moons working 16-hour shifts with broken filters. They saw human ships stopped and searched without cause. They saw their culture mocked in alien media, called chaotic, primitive, or too emotional. But Earth's leaders kept saying, "Patience. We must earn our place." On Mars, in a small repair bay near the Tharsis docks, Lisa Grant wiped grease from her hands and stared at a cracked screen. She was 32, sharp-eyed, and tired of lies. Her brother had died on a Krell freighter when the oxygen system failed, a system humans had warned about weeks before. No apology came. No investigation. Just a form letter saying regrettable incident. Lisa didn't shout. She didn't quit. She started saving data. Every report of broken equipment. Every denied request for safety gear. Every time a human worker was fined for disrespect after asking a simple question. She sent these files through hidden channels to others like her, on Luna Prime, on New Oregon, even back on Earth. It wasn't rebellion. Not yet. Just truth quietly gathered. In Earth's orbital shipyards, Chris Bell ran drills in an old F-77 Skyward fighter. It was outdated, slow, and outmatched by Krell warships. But Chris flew it like it was alive. He was 24 with a quick smile and restless hands. He joined the Earth Defense Auxiliary hoping to protect his home. But all they did was patrol empty zones and salute passing alien cruisers. "Why do we even train?" he asked his instructor once. "Because one day," the old man replied, "someone might forget we're here." Chris didn't understand then, but he kept flying. Life went on. Humans built stations, fixed engines, grew food in domes, and raised kids who had never seen Earth's oceans. They celebrated birthdays with recycled cake. They buried friends in vacuum-sealed graves, and through it all they stayed calm. They smiled when insulted. They bowed their heads when scolded. They waited. The galaxy mistook this for weakness. At a trade summit on Veln Prime, a Krell commander laughed when Daniel Shaw asked for better conditions on Cerberus 9. "Your people chose to work there," he said, his voice like grinding stone. "If they cannot handle the work, send weaker ones. Or none at all." Shaw didn't argue. He simply nodded and left. But that night in his small quarters, he played a message from his daughter on Earth. She was 8 years old. She asked when he was coming home. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the stars outside his window and wondered how long patience could last. Meanwhile, on Cerberus 9, a young boy named Noah Ellis helped his mother sort ore in the lower tunnels. He was 10 with messy hair and a love for old Earth cartoons. He dreamed of flying a real ship one day, like the ones he saw in smuggled videos. His school lessons were basic: math, history, survival. No art, no music. The Krell said those were non-essential. One morning, the air filters in Sector G failed again. Coughing filled the tunnels. Workers gathered near the main gate, holding signs that read, "Clean air now and we are not animals." They weren't armed. They weren't shouting. Just standing, waiting for someone to listen. Krell security came fast. They wore black armor and carried stun rods. Their leader barked orders in a language no human understood. When the crowd didn't move, he raised his weapon. Noah was near the front holding his mother's hand. He didn't understand why the aliens were angry. He only knew his chest hurt from breathing. What happened next was caught on a tiny camera hidden in a lunchbox. The footage was grainy, shaky, but clear enough. The Krell fired. Not stun rounds. Real bullets. People fell. Screams cut through the thin air. Noah's mother pushed him behind her. Then she fell too. The boy ran. He stumbled, got up, ran again. He reached a service tunnel and turned back once, just once, to look for her. That was when the shot hit him. He dropped. His small body lay still on the cold metal floor. The camera kept rolling for 3 more seconds before the battery died. That night, the video traveled faster than any ship. It slipped through firewalls, bounced off satellites, and landed in the hands of Lisa Grant on Mars. She watched it twice. Then she sent it to Chris Bell, to Daniel Shaw, to every human outpost she could reach. No one spoke. No one cried out. But something changed. The quiet wasn't peaceful anymore. It was heavy, like the air before a storm. Humans still went to work the next day. They still fixed engines, sorted ore, and flew patrols. But their eyes were different, harder, sharper. They looked at the stars not with hope, but with something deeper, something older. The galaxy had pushed too far. They just didn't know it yet because patience isn't endless. And humans, for all their kindness, were not made to be broken forever. Part 2. The video of Noah Ellis spread like fire in dry grass. It didn't need words. It didn't need music. Just the sound of a child running, then falling, then silence. Within hours, every human settlement, from Earth's cities to the lonely outposts on icy moons, had seen it. Some watched it once and turned away. Others played it again and again as if hoping the ending might change. But it never did. No riots broke out. No angry mobs stormed alien embassies. Instead, something quieter happened. Something colder. On Luna Prime, workers walked off their shifts without a word. On New Oregon, farmers stopped shipping crops to Krell trade depots. In Earth's orbital docks, engineers powered down relay stations one by one, flipping switches with steady hands and blank faces. The silence was the loudest thing in the galaxy. Krell officials noticed first. Their supply lines slowed. Their comms grew patchy. When they demanded answers, human overseers simply said, "Systems are down for maintenance." But the maintenance never ended. Veln diplomats tried to call Earth's government. The lines were dead. Messages bounced back unread. Even the usual polite replies from Ambassador Daniel Shaw stopped coming. At first, the Krell laughed. "Let them sulk," said Commander Vorak, head of Krell operations in the Cerberus sector. "They'll crawl back when they need credits." But humans didn't crawl back. On Mars, Lisa Grant sat in a dim room filled with humming servers. She wasn't alone. Around her, a dozen others, engineers, medics, pilots, watched screens showing the collapse of human cooperation across the sector. Trade routes froze. Data streams dried up. Navigation buoys blinked out, leaving alien freighters drifting in dark space. "We're not attacking," Lisa said quietly. "We're just stepping back. And if they force us?" asked a young medic named Paul Reyes. "Then they'll find out we've been holding the whole thing together," she replied. She was right. Humans had built most of the galaxy's civilian infrastructure. They maintained life support systems on mixed species stations. They coded the software that ran cargo manifests. They repaired engines no one else understood. Without them, the smooth machine of galactic commerce began to cough and stall. Still, Earth said nothing official. No declaration, no warning, just absence. On Cerberus 9, the Krell tried to restart the mines with forced labor from other species. But the human-designed air filters refused to work without human calibration codes. The drills jammed. The lifts failed. Within days, the entire operation shut down. Krell soldiers kicked consoles in frustration, not understanding that the machines weren't broken. They were waiting. Back on Earth, in a quiet office in Geneva, Daniel Shaw finally broke his silence. He sent one message to the Galactic Council: "We request an emergency session." The Veln agreed at once. They feared chaos. The Krell agreed too, but with smirks. They thought humans would beg. They thought Shaw would kneel and ask for mercy. The day of the session arrived. Delegates from 50 species filled the great chamber on Veln Prime. Robes shimmered. Antennae twitched. Holograms flickered with unreadable symbols. All eyes turned to the human section. It was empty. Not one human sat in their assigned seats. Not Shaw, not his aides. Not even the junior observers. Just empty chairs under soft light. A murmur rose. The Veln envoy checked his list twice. The Krell commander stood up, face dark with anger. "Where are they?" he demanded. No one knew. Then slowly the other delegates began to understand. Humans hadn't come to talk. They had come to show what happened when they left the room. Without humans, the council couldn't pass trade laws, because human data analysts processed the numbers. They couldn't verify treaty compliance, because human auditors ran the checks. They couldn't even broadcast the session live because human techs managed the signal relays. The meeting collapsed in confusion. Species that had ignored humans for years now whispered to each other in worry. What do they want? Are they leaving the galaxy? Will they shut down the wormhole gates? No one had answers. Meanwhile, far from the grand halls, Chris Bell sat in the cockpit of his old F-77, parked in a shadowed hangar on Luna Prime. He wasn't flying drills today. He was waiting. Like everyone else, his comm crackled. "It was Lisa, you seeing this?" she asked. "The empty seats?" "Yeah." "They think it's a stunt." "It's not," he said. "No, it's a message. We're not part of your game anymore. Not until you see us." Chris looked out the viewport. Earth hung in the black, blue, and white and fragile. He thought of Noah Ellis. He thought of his own little sister back home who wanted to be a pilot too. "What now?" he asked. "Now we wait," Lisa said. "And we prepare." Preparation wasn't about weapons. Not yet, it was about truth. In hidden rooms and shielded servers, humans were gathering every record of every wrong done to them. Medical logs from failed oxygen systems, pay stubs showing wage theft, audio files of insults, threats, lies. And at the center of it all, the video of a boy running, then falling. Lisa called it the ledger. Not for revenge, for memory. On Earth, schools paused lessons. Factories slowed. People gathered in town squares, not to protest, but to remember. They lit candles for Noah. They shared stories of lost friends, broken promises, quiet humiliations. No speeches, just truth spoken softly under open skies. The galaxy watched, uneasy. For the first time, humans weren't asking to be included. They were showing what the galaxy looked like without them. And it looked broken. Krell freighters sat idle in orbit, unable to dock without human clearance codes. Veln data hubs crashed when human-maintained backups failed. Even the pleasure worlds, where rich aliens went to relax, complained when their human chefs. Musicians and medics vanished overnight. Panic spread. Quiet at first, then louder. Still, Earth remained silent. Ambassador Shaw didn't return calls. Human ships didn't answer hails. The only signal coming from human space was a repeating loop of static, and sometimes, if you listened closely, the faint sound of a child's footsteps on metal. The Krell grew furious. They sent warships toward Earth's orbit, blustering about restoring order. But when they arrived, they found no fleet waiting. No guns pointed at them. Just empty space and the pale curve of a planet that refused to speak. Then something strange happened. A small human cargo vessel, unarmed and alone, drifted near the lead Krell cruiser. It broadcast one message on all channels. "We buried our dead today. We will not bury our future." The Krell captain didn't know how to respond. He couldn't shoot a freighter full of civilians. He couldn't ignore it either. So he waited. And in that waiting, doubt crept in. Were humans really just giving up? Or were they doing something worse, something smarter? Back on Mars, Lisa uploaded the final piece of the ledger. Every file, every name, every date. She didn't send it anywhere yet. She just saved it, locked it, waited, because the next move wasn't hers. It belonged to the galaxy. Would they apologize? Would they pretend it never happened? Or would they double down and force humans to do more than just walk away? Chris Bell powered up his fighter that night. Not for a drill, just to feel the engine hum under his hands. He knew the calm wouldn't last. Sooner or later, someone would push again, and this time humans wouldn't just leave the room, they'd shut the door behind them and lock it from the outside. The silence wasn't peace. It was the breath before the storm, and everyone, even the proud Krell, could feel it coming. Part 3. The silence stretched. Days turned into weeks. Human space stayed quiet but not empty. Behind closed doors and shielded walls, people worked. Not with anger, but with purpose. They knew the galaxy was watching. They knew their next move would echo forever. On Luna Prime, in a retired hangar buried under layers of lunar rock, a small group met in secret. Among them was Frank Torres. He was 63 with silver hair and hands that still moved like a pilot's. Quick, sure, steady. He had flown Earth's first deep space patrol ships decades ago. Now he wore no uniform, but everyone in the room stood a little straighter when he entered. He didn't speak at first. He let others talk. Lisa Grant showed them the ledger. Every file, every truth, every name. Chris Bell described how human pilots were ready, not to fight, but to protect. A medic named Paul Reyes explained how colony clinics had stockpiled supplies, just in case things turned violent. A young engineer named Maya Ruiz detailed how they had quietly rerouted power grids so human worlds could run alone, without outside help. Frank listened. Then he said, "We're not building a war. We're building a witness." That word stuck. Witness, not revenge, not conquest. Just proof, clear, undeniable, and shared with everyone who had eyes to see. They knew the Krell would never admit fault. The Velen would hide behind rules. But the galaxy was bigger than those two powers. There were dozens of smaller species, some oppressed, some ignored, some just trying to survive. Those were the ones who needed to see the truth, so they prepared to show it, not with weapons. With light back on Earth, schools reopened, but lessons changed. Children learned not just math and science, but history, the real kind. They studied the names of miners who died in bad tunnels. They read letters from workers who never got paid. They watched the video of Noah Ellis not to scare them, but to teach them. Silence helps no one. Truth does. In Geneva, Daniel Shaw returned to his office. He hadn't spoken in weeks, but now he began drafting a new message. Short, clear, no begging, just facts. He listed every treaty broken, every promise ignored, every life lost. He attached the ledger. And at the end, he wrote, "We ask for a fair hearing. Nothing more. Nothing less." He didn't send it yet. He waited, because timing mattered. On Mars, Lisa worked day and night. She built a new broadcast system, simple, strong, and impossible to block. It used old human satellites, repurposed cargo drones, and even civilian comms from fishing outposts in the asteroid belt. It wasn't fancy, but it would reach every world that had a screen or a speaker. Chris flew low over Earth's oceans, testing signal relays hidden in weather buoys. Maya Ruiz rewired old mining bots to carry data pulses across dead zones. Paul Reyes made sure every clinic had backup power in case someone tried to cut them off. They weren't soldiers. They were neighbors, teachers, mechanics, nurses. But they stood together now, not as victims, but as keepers of a story the galaxy needed to hear. The Krell grew restless. Their economy bled without human labor. Their ships drifted without human navigation codes. They sent more threats, more demands. But Earth didn't flinch. When a Krell cruiser fired a warning shot near a human freighter, the freighter didn't run. It just turned off its lights and went dark. The cruiser fired again. Still nothing. Then from every human station in range, a single message played. "We remember Noah Ellis." The Krell captain ordered retreat. Not from fear, but from shame. Even his own crew looked uneasy. The Velen tried diplomacy. They offered reforms, better pay, new safety rules, but it was too late for half measures. Humans didn't want crumbs. They wanted respect, and they were ready to earn it. Frank Torres gathered the group one last time before the broadcast. He stood in the center of the hangar under flickering lights and said, "Tomorrow we stop hiding. We show them who we are, not what they think we are. We're not loud. We're not cruel. But we're not small either." No one cheered. They just nodded, because they knew what came next wasn't about winning. It was about being seen. That night, Lisa double-checked every file. She made sure Noah's video played clear. She added timestamps, cross-references, voice logs from dying miners, medical reports from failed oxygen systems. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't need to. The truth was heavy enough. Chris sat in his cockpit, not flying, just thinking. He remembered his sister asking why humans always said sorry, even when they did nothing wrong. He hoped, after tomorrow, she wouldn't have to ask that again. On Earth, Daniel Shaw pressed send. The message went to the Galactic Council. Not as a plea, as an invitation. "Come," it said. "See what you've ignored. Then decide who you really are." The Council agreed, quickly, nervously. They set a date. 1 week away. Humans would speak. The galaxy would listen. In the days before, human world stayed calm. No protest, no panic, just quiet readiness. Families ate dinner.
Kids did homework.
Workers fixed machines. But everyone knew. This was the moment. Frank Torres walked the halls of the hangar one last time. He touched the wing of an old transport ship, the kind that once carried grain to starving colonies while aliens argued over trade tariffs. He smiled faintly. Humans had always fed the galaxy, even when the galaxy kicked them. Now they would feed it truth. The night before the council session, Lisa sent a test pulse through the broadcast net. It reached Mars, Luna, New Oregon, Cerberus 9, and beyond. Every receiver lit up with 2 words. We remember. She leaned back, exhausted but calm. The storm wasn't coming anymore. It was here, and humans weren't hiding from it. They were standing in the center, eyes open, hands steady, ready to speak, not with shouts, but with silence finally broken. The day arrived. The great chamber of the Galactic Council on Veln Prime filled slowly. Delegates came in robes, armor, and soft-woven cloaks. Some walked with pride, others with worry. All of them knew this was not a normal meeting. The air felt thick like before a thunderstorm. Human seats remained empty at first. Then, just as the session was called to order, Daniel Shaw entered. He wore a simple dark suit, no medals, no flags. Behind him walked Lisa Grant, Chris Bell, and Frank Torres. No guards, no weapons, just 4 humans walking into a room full of species that had ignored them for decades. A hush fell. Shaw stepped to the center podium. He didn't bow. He didn't smile. He just stood there, calm and still, until every eye was on him. "I'm not here to beg," he said. His voice was quiet but clear. "I am here to show you what you have chosen not to see." He tapped a small device on the podium. The lights dimmed. On every screen in the chamber, and on every public channel across known space, the first file from the ledger began to play. It wasn't a speech. It was proof. First came logs from Cerberus 9, repair requests ignored, air filter failures reported and dismissed, medical calls unanswered. Then came pay records showing human workers paid half what others earned for the same work. Then came audio clips, Krell overseers laughing as they called humans dirt rats, Veln clerks sighing as they denied basic rights due to procedural delays. The chamber stayed silent. No one moved. Then came the video of Noah Ellis. Gasps filled the room. A Veln delegate covered her face. A young delegate from the insect-like Zern species began to tremble. Even the Krell commander Vorak looked away, but not before his jaw tightened. When the video ended, Shaw spoke again. "This is not one incident. This is the pattern. For 43 years, humans have asked politely. We have signed your treaties. We have followed your rules. We have buried our dead in silence. But silence is not consent." He stepped back. Lisa Grant moved forward. She didn't speak. She just played more files, hundreds of them. A miner coughing himself to death in a tunnel with broken filters. A mother begging for medicine her child never received. A pilot whose ship was seized without cause, left stranded for weeks. Each clip was short. Each was real. Each was undeniable. When she finished, Chris Bell stepped up. He showed how human-built systems kept the galaxy running. Navigation grids, life support, data networks. "We didn't hold this over you," he said. "We shared it freely, but you treated our help as weakness. You took and never gave back." Finally, Frank Torres spoke. His voice was rough but steady. "We are not asking for war. We are asking for fairness. For a seat at this table, not as servants but as equals. If you cannot give us that, then know this. We will walk away for good. And next time we won't come back." He stepped down. The humans stood together, silent. Then the Krell commander rose. His armor clanked as he moved. "This is lies," he growled. "Edited, twisted. Humans always play the victim." Shaw didn't argue. He just said, "Then let the tribunal decide." The Veln envoy nodded quickly. "Yes, a full review." By neutral judges. But before the vote could be called, something unexpected happened. From the back of the chamber, a small, green-skinned delegate from the Rellan collective stood up. The Rellan were a quiet species, often overlooked. Their worlds had also suffered under Krell rule. "We have seen the files," the Rellan said in a soft voice. "They are true. We have our own records. We stayed silent too, out of fear. Then another delegate rose, a bird-like being from the Seni Reach. Our workers were treated the same. We said nothing because no one listened to us either. One by one, smaller species began to speak, not to accuse humans but to agree with them. They shared their own stories of being pushed aside, ignored, used. The room, once full of proud empires, now sounded like a gathering of the forgotten. The Krell tried to shout them down, but the Veln raised a hand. The evidence is clear, they said. A tribunal will be formed. Humans will have full standing. But Shaw shook his head. No, not just a tribunal behind closed doors. The truth must be seen by all. And then, before anyone could stop him, he gave the signal. Across every human-controlled relay, every satellite, every public screen in every city, port, and colony, the ledger began to broadcast, not just to the council, to everyone. On Krell homeworlds, citizens saw the video of Noah Ellis in their markets and homes. On Veln streets, people watched human miners beg for clean air while officials laughed. On distant farming moons, species that had never met a human saw the truth of how they were treated. The galaxy watched. And for the first time it could not look away. Reactions came fast. On a Krell slave mining world, workers tore down overseer towers. On a Veln trade hub, citizens marched demanding resignations. Even among the Krell youth, protests grew. Why do we fear truth? They asked. The old order cracked. Back in the chamber, the humans said nothing more. They simply turned and walked out. No fanfare. No victory speeches. Just 4 people leaving a room that had never truly welcomed them. Outside, the sky was dark with ships, not warships, but news vessels, civilian transports, and small craft from a dozen species. Reporters shouted questions, but Shaw just kept walking. Later that night on Luna Prime, Chris Bell stood on a viewing deck watching Earth rise over the horizon. Lisa joined him holding a warm drink. Do you think it worked? He asked. It already did, she said. They saw us, not as workers, not as problems, as people. Frank Torres stood nearby, arms crossed. Now the real work begins, he said. Building something fair, not just for us, for all of them too. On Earth, children watched the broadcast with their parents. They saw Noah Ellis run. They saw him fall. And they saw for the first time adults cry not from sadness, but from shame that it took so long to act. The snap had happened. Not with a bang, but with a screen. Not with fire, but with truth. And no species, no matter how proud, how powerful, or how blind, could ever forget it. Part 5. Time passed. Not much, but enough. The galaxy did not change overnight, but it began to bend. The Krell hegemony, once unshakable, faced revolts in its outer sectors. Workers of all species tore down old rules that favored only the strong. The Veln Concord rewrote its charter, adding new seats at its highest table. Human seats, yes, but also places for the Rellan, the Seni, and others long ignored. Treaties were not just signed this time. They were watched, tested, and held to account. Humans did not take over. They did not demand revenge. They asked only for one thing, to be seen as equals. And slowly the galaxy learned to look them in the eye. On Cerberus 9, the mines stayed closed. In their place, a simple memorial rose from the cold metal ground. A circle of smooth stones brought from Earth, Mars, Luna, and every human world. At its center stood a small statue of a boy running, arms out, face turned toward the sky. No name was carved. None was needed. Everyone knew who he was. Lisa Grant visited once. She didn't speak. She just placed a single Earth wildflower at the base, real, not synthetic, and stood there until the sun dipped below the horizon. Then she left, carrying no anger, only quiet resolve. Back on Earth, schools taught new lessons, not just about stars and atoms, but about dignity, truth, and the cost of silence. Children still dreamed of flying ships, but now they also learned how to speak up when something was wrong. Daniel Shaw returned to teaching at a small university. He didn't talk about politics. He talked about listening and when to stop. Chris Bell still flew. But now his F-77 carried medical supplies to distant colonies, not just patrols. He trained new pilots not in war, but in rescue. Speed matters, he'd say, but so does knowing why you're flying. Frank Torres retired for good this time. He moved to a quiet house near the sea where the only sound was wind and waves. Sometimes young people came to visit, engineers, medics, even alien students. They asked how it all changed. He never gave long answers. Just we stopped asking to be heard. We made them listen. The ledger stayed public. Anyone could access it. It wasn't hidden in archives or locked behind codes. It lived on every network and every language, shown in schools and town halls across 100 worlds. Not to shame, but to remind, fairness is not given. It is claimed, with patience, with proof, and sometimes with silence that finally breaks. Trade returned, but differently. Human ships carried goods again, but now under fair contracts. Alien crews worked alongside humans, not above them. On mixed stations, cafeterias served Earth bread next to Krell spice loaf. Music from a dozen species played in shared lounges. It wasn't perfect. Mistakes still happened. Old habits died hard. But now, when someone spoke up, others listened. Years later, a young Krell scholar named Tarek came to Earth to study human history. He visited the memorial on Cerberus 9. He read Noah's name in the guest book, written by thousands from every corner of known space. He asked an old human engineer why humans didn't fight back with weapons when they were hurt. The engineer, a woman named Maya Ruiz, looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "Because we knew the real weapon wasn't fire. It was truth, and truth doesn't need guns. It just needs to be seen." Tarek wrote that down. He included it in his thesis, which became required reading at the Velen Academy. On Luna Prime, Chris stood with his own daughter, now 10 years old, watching Earth rise. She held a small model of an F-77 in her hands. "Did you really fly one of these?" she asked. "I did," he said. "Were you scared?" "Sometimes, but more than scared, I was tired of pretending we didn't matter." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "Do we matter now?" He smiled. "Now everyone knows we do." Back on Mars, Lisa worked on a new project. Not data, but gardens. Real soil, real plants, grown under domes that once held only machines. She said humans needed to remember how to grow life, not just fix broken things. And in Geneva, Daniel Shaw walked through a park filled with children of many species playing together. No one stared. No one whispered. They just played, laughing, running, falling, getting back up. He sat on a bench and watched. A Velen child helped a human boy tie his shoe. A Krell teenager shared a snack with a Rellan girl. It was small, ordinary, but it was everything. The moment humans' patience snapped had not brought fire or ruin. It had brought change. Slow, hard, but real. The galaxy had learned that humans were not loud because they were angry. They were quiet because they hoped. And when hope ran out, they spoke not with rage but with clarity. No species forgot. Not because they were forced to, but because they finally understood. And in that understanding, a new kind of peace began. Not built on fear or power, but on the simple truth that no one should have to beg to be treated fairly. The stars still shone, ships still flew. But now, when humans looked up, they did not see a galaxy that ignored them. They saw one that finally saw them back.